Chapter 1. The Boy in the Bow Tie. A lonely child walks into a café and changes a mute Omega's life. The coffee spilled before he could move. Hot, fast, spreading across the marble counter like blame. The banker didn't apologize. He just stared at Kalen like the mistake had grown legs and walked into him on purpose. "Watch where you're standing." Kalen stepped back. Hands up, mouthing the word sorry even though his lips made no sound. The man straightened his tie and left. No one else looked up. That was fine. Better, actually. Kalen had learned early that being mute made people uncomfortable. Not because they pitied him, because they couldn't predict him. And in a city built on corporate posture and polished sentences, silence felt like a threat. He wiped the counter himself. The cafe worker didn't offer. She was already turning toward the next customer. Someone louder, someone easier. Hi viewers. Have you ever apologized for something that wasn't your fault just to make someone else comfortable? Drop a comment and tell me about it. Kalen slid into his usual spot near the window. Same table. Same angle. Morning light hit the wood just right here, warm enough to feel borrowed. He set down his bag. Canvas, fraying at one strap, and pulled out a worn paperback. Something about shipwrecks. He wasn't sure why he kept reading it. Maybe because the people in the story were more lost than he was. His apartment sat above a laundromat 3 blocks south. The rent was cheap because the vents rattled and the hot water only worked after midnight. He didn't mind. Nights were his anyway. He worked as a cleaner in the Harlow Financial Tower. 43 floors of glass and leather chairs and men who never looked at him twice. Good. He preferred it that way. The building smelled different at night. Less cologne. More floor polish and emptiness. He'd push his cart from office to office, wiping down desks where deals got made, emptying trash bins full of crumpled contracts and half-eaten lunches. Sometimes he'd find things. A wedding ring left by a sink. A resignation letter in a drawer. Proof that powerful people were just as messy as everyone else. But he never touched anything that wasn't garbage. Never looked at documents he shouldn't. That was survival. Because Omegas who worked in alpha spaces had to be twice as invisible and 3 times as careful. One accusation, didn't matter if it was true, and he'd be gone. Blacklisted. Left with nothing. So he kept his head down. Did his job. Collected his check every 2 weeks and deposited it at the bank on 5th. Routine. Safe. Boring. Exactly how he needed it to be. The cafe had become part of that routine 6 months ago. After his night shift ended at 7 in the morning, he'd walk here. Order the same thing. Black coffee. Sometimes a muffin if he felt ambitious. The barista knew his order but not his name. Perfect. He'd sit. Read. Watch the sunrise creep across the harbor. Most mornings, the financial district felt like a stage. People performing success. Loud voices. Expensive watches. Conversations about markets and mergers that meant nothing to him. He was just passing through. A ghost in their world. The city woke up in layers. First came the runners, earbuds in, faces determined. Then the early shift workers, moving slower, coffee in hand. Finally the suits, perfectly pressed. Phones already glued to their ears before they hit the sidewalk. Kalen watched them all. Not judging. Just observing. It was easier to understand the world when you didn't have to participate in it. The cafe hummed with low conversation. Espresso machines hissed. A woman laughed too loud at her phone. Someone's chair scraped tile. Normal. Until the door opened. Kalen noticed because everyone else did. Not loudly. Just a ripple. Eyes lifting. Mouths pausing mid-sentence. A child stepped inside. Alone. Not lost. That was the strange part. He walked like someone with a destination. Navy suit perfectly tailored. Shoes polished black. A tiny silk bow tie that probably cost more than Kalen's entire wardrobe. 6 years old. Maybe 7. No parent. No nanny. No one. The boy scanned the room slowly. Methodical. Like he was searching for something specific. Then his eyes landed on Kalen. He walked straight over. Kalen froze. Customers didn't approach him. Especially not children dressed like they owned half the city. The boy stopped beside the table, looked up. His face was serious. Too serious for someone that small. Then he tugged Kalen's sleeve and whispered, "No one will play Wimme." The words came out soft, uncertain, like he'd practiced saying them but wasn't sure they'd land. Kalen blinked. The boy's hands moved, not wildly, carefully. Sign language, clumsy but real. He signed. "Friend?" Someone taught him that. Kalen's chest tightened. He nodded slowly, then signed back simple and clear, "Yes." The boy's face brightened. Not a smile exactly, just less alone. He climbed into the chair across from Kalen without asking, pulled a napkin from the dispenser, started folding it into a shape that looked like a boat. Kalen watched. The boy's fingers moved with surprising precision. Each fold deliberate, practiced. This wasn't random play. This was muscle memory. Kalen reached for the sugar packets. 5 minutes later they had a game. Not chess, not checkers. Something they invented. Towers made of creamers. Paths drawn in spilled sugar. The boy's small fingers moved with surprising precision. He didn't just play. He strategized. Anticipated moves. Like someone trained. The boy knocked over one of Kalen's towers with a creamer packet. Then rebuilt it better. Stronger. He was thinking 3 moves ahead. Who taught a 6-year-old to think like that? Kalen caught himself smiling. The boy didn't talk much. Mostly signed. Pointed. Laughed once when Kalen's tower collapsed. His laugh was small. Surprised. Like he wasn't used to using it. Around them, the café continued its morning rhythm. Orders called out. Milk steamed. Conversations overlapped. But at their table everything slowed down. Kalen grabbed his pen. Wrote on a napkin. "What's your name?" The boy read it carefully. Then looked up. "Dakari." He said it like it was a secret. Like giving his name meant something. Kalen wrote again. "I'm Kalen." Dakari studied the napkin. Traced the letters with his finger. "Kalon." He said it slowly. Testing it. Then he signed, "Nice name." They continued playing. Dakari was good at the game. Better than Kalen expected. He'd build elaborate structures, then knock them down strategically to create new paths. It wasn't just play. It was problem-solving. Kalen wondered what kind of life this boy lived. The expensive clothes suggested wealth. The careful way he moved suggested training. But the loneliness in his eyes suggested something else entirely. Isolation. The kind that comes from being surrounded by people who work for you instead of caring about you. A waitress approached the table. Young. Nervous. "Excuse me, is everything okay here?" Kalen nodded. She looked at Dakari, then back at Kalen. Is his parent coming? Dakari answered before Kalen could write anything. "I'm fine. Thank you." Polite. Practiced. The voice of a child who'd been taught exactly what to say. The waitress hesitated, then retreated. Dakari went back to building. People always ask that. Kalen tilted his head. Question. If my parent is coming. If I'm lost. If I need help. He stacked 3 creamers in a pyramid. "I'm not lost. I always know where I am." Kalen wrote. "Do you come here often?" "Sometimes. When I can." "By yourself?" Dakari's hands paused. "My security team is outside. They follow me everywhere." He said it casually, like having armed guards was normal. "But they stay in the car unless I need them." "Why?" "Because Papa says I need to learn independence. But also safety." He looked up. "It's complicated." 15 minutes passed. Then 30. The morning crowd thinned. Business people grabbed their coffee and left. The café settled into a quieter rhythm. Just Kalen and Dakari. And the waitress who kept glancing over like she wasn't sure if she should intervene. Dakari leaned forward. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Papa says I'm not supposed to talk to strangers." Kalen nodded. That made sense. The boy's eyes flicked toward the window, then back. "But strangers are the only ones who have time." The words hit different. Sharp. Honest. Kalen wanted to write something. Comfort him. Tell him that wasn't true. But before he could, Takari kept talking. My tutors are nice. They teach me things. Languages, math, history. He stacked another creamer. But they leave when their shift ends. Kalen's hand paused over his pen. And the security team is always watching. But they don't play. They just watch. Takari knocked over a tower. Started rebuilding. Papa's busy. He has meetings. Phone calls. Important things. The boy's voice got quieter. Everyone's always doing important things. Kalen wrote quickly. Playing is important too. Takari read it. Looked up. Something shifted in his expression. Like someone had just confirmed something he'd been hoping was true. You think so? Kalen nodded firmly. Takari smiled. Real this time. Papa says protecting people is the most expensive thing you can do. He said it casually, like quoting scripture. He says everything costs something. And the things worth having cost the most. Kalen studied the boy, 6 years old, maybe 7, already talking like someone who'd been taught that kindness was a transaction. It made his chest ache. He wrote again. Some things are free. Takari tilted his head. Like what? This, right now. Takari looked at the table. The game they'd built. The mess they'd made. You're not getting paid? Kalen shook his head. And you don't want anything? Another shake. Takari frowned. Confused. Then why did you stay? Kalen wrote carefully. Because you asked. Takari stared at the napkin for a long time. Then he did something unexpected. He reached across the table and touched Kalen's hand. Just for a second. A thank you without words. Kalen's throat tightened. When was the last time someone touched him without flinching first? He couldn't remember. The cafe door opened. An elderly woman walked in. Ordered tea. Sat by the counter. Life continued around them. But at their table, something had shifted. Takari pulled his hand back and returned to the game. Building. Creating. Lost in the simple joy of having someone pay attention. He talked while he played. Small things. About his favorite books. About the ships he watched from his bedroom window. About a dog he wanted but couldn't have because of allergies. Kalen listened. Nodded. Wrote short responses. What kind of dog? A big one. Like the ones security has. But friendlier. What would you name it? Takari thought hard. Captain. Kalen smiled. Good name. You think so? Nod. Papa would say it's silly. He'd say dogs need proper names. Captain is a proper name. Takari grinned. That's what I think too. He built another tower. Taller this time. Do you have a dog? Kalen shook his head. Why not? My apartment doesn't allow pets. That's sad. Kalen shrugged. It's okay. I work nights anyway. What do you do? I clean offices. Takari looked up. Which building? Kalen hesitated. Then wrote. Harlow Financial Tower. Takari's eyes widened. Papa owns that building. Of course he did. Have you seen the big office on the 43rd floor? Kalen nodded slowly. That's Papa's office. He's there every Tuesday and Thursday. Which meant Kalen had probably cleaned Xavion Draven's office dozens of times. Had probably touched his desk. Emptied his trash. Wiped down his windows. All without knowing whose space it was. The thought made him dizzy. Papa says that office has the best view in the city. Takari knocked over a creamer tower. I've only been there twice. Once when I was 4. Once last year. What did you think? It's lonely. The answer came fast. Honest. Big windows. Big desk. No people. He looked up. Just papers and phones and screens. Sounds quiet. Too quiet. Takari started building again. I like it better here. Why? Because here people talk. And laugh. And make messes. He gestured to their table. And no one cares if you spill sugar. Kalen smiled. Outside the street was busy. Cars passing. People walking. The usual rhythm of a city that never slowed down. But inside this cafe, time felt different. Slower. Gentler. Takari knocked over another tower. Giggled. Started rebuilding immediately. Kalen helped. And for the first time in months, maybe years, he didn't feel like he was interrupting someone else's life. He felt like he was part of one. The boy looked up suddenly. "I'm serious again. Can I ask you something?" Kalen nodded. "Why don't you talk?" The question wasn't rude, just curious. Kalen grabbed a fresh napkin, wrote slowly, "I lost my voice protecting someone." Dakari read it twice. "Did it hurt?" Kalen nodded. "Was the person worth it?" That was harder to answer. Kalen thought about the warehouse fire. 3 years ago, his coworker trapped behind a collapsed shelf. The smoke so thick he couldn't see his own hands. He'd screamed for help until his voice gave out, until something inside his throat broke. The doctors said the damage was permanent. Smoke inhalation, scar tissue, vocal cords that would never work again. His coworker survived. Quit a week later. Never said thank you. But that wasn't the point. Kalen wrote, "Yes." Dakari nodded. Like that made perfect sense. "Papa says protecting people is expensive. I guess you paid with your voice." Kalen hadn't thought about it that way. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. Dakari went back to building. "I think that was brave." The words were simple, honest, and they hit Kalen harder than he expected. Because no one had ever called him brave before. Just unlucky, just quiet, just that mute Omega who cleans the offices. But this child, this strange, lonely, too smart child, looked at him and saw something different. Saw someone worth sitting with, worth talking to, worth trusting. Dakari glanced toward the window again. His smile faded. Just a little. "I have to go soon." Kalen nodded. "But can I come back?" Kalen hesitated. Every instinct screamed no. Getting close to someone like this, someone connected to power, was dangerous. People like Dakari came with complications. Security teams, powerful parents, expectations Kalen couldn't meet. But Dakari was waiting, hopeful. And Kalen couldn't bring himself to take that hope away. He nodded. Dakari's face lit up. "Tomorrow." Kalen nodded again. "Same table?" Another nod. "Promise." Kalen grabbed his pen. "Promise." Dakari stood, straightened his little bow tie like he'd been taught. "Thank you for playing Wimme." Then he walked toward the door. Alone, just like he'd arrived. But different now. Lighter. He pushed open the door, stepped outside, turned back once, waved. Kalen waved back. The door closed. Kalen sat at the table, staring at the mess they'd made. Sugar scattered everywhere. Napkins folded into boats. Creamers stacked like a skyline. He should clean it up. But he didn't. Not yet. He just sat there, holding the napkin with his promise written on it. And realized something that terrified him. He'd just made a promise to a child whose last name he didn't even know. A child who walked around alone in expensive clothes. A child who talked about tutors and security teams and a father who owned ships. Ships. The word echoed in his head. Papa owns the ships. Kalen's stomach dropped. There was only one man in this city known for owning ships. Not cargo boats. Not ferries. The kind of ships that controlled trade routes. The kind that moved goods no one talked about in daylight. The kind tied to a name people only whispered when they thought no one important was listening. Draven. Xavion Draven. Billionaire. Alpha. Untouchable. And Dakari. Oh God. Dakari was his son. Kalen's hands started shaking. He'd just spent an hour playing with the heir to the Draven Empire. The same empire that controlled half the shipping industry on the eastern seaboard. The same empire rumored to have connections to organized crime. The same empire that could crush him without even noticing. He should leave. Right now. Tomorrow, when Dakari showed up, Kalen should be anywhere else. That was the smart choice. The safe choice. But when he closed his eyes, all he saw was Dakari's face. That hopeful expression. That small smile. That whispered thank you. And Kalen knew. Knew with absolute certainty that he'd be here tomorrow. Because some promises mattered more than safety. The waitress approached. "You okay?" Kalen looked up. Nodded. She glanced at the table. That was Dakari Draven. Kalen's chest tightened. So she knew. His security team comes in sometimes. They always sit in the corner. Watch him. She picked up an empty cup from a nearby table. I've never seen him actually play with anyone before. Kalen didn't know what to say, so he just signed. He's lonely. The waitress didn't understand the signs, but she understood the expression on Kalen's face. Yeah, money doesn't fix that, I guess. She walked away. Kalen started cleaning up the mess, carefully, like he was preserving evidence of something important. He gathered the napkin boats, folded them, put them in his bag, brushed the sugar into his hand, let it fall into the trash, res-tacked the creamers. The table looked normal again, like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. The cafe door opened again. 3 men stepped inside. Tall, dark suits, earpieces. They didn't browse the menu. They scanned. Methodical, trained, looking for something, or someone. One of them spoke into his wrist. Target located. And they were looking directly at Kalen. His blood went cold. The lead man started walking over. Not rushing, not aggressive, but purposeful. Kalen's mind raced. What had he done wrong? He'd just played with a kid. That was it. But clearly that was enough. The man reached the table, stopped, looked down at the now clean surface, then at Kalen. Sir, I'm going to need you to come with us. Kalen's heart hammered. He grabbed his pen, wrote fast. Why? The man's expression didn't change. Mr. Draven would like to speak with you. Kalen's world tilted. Xavier Draven wanted to speak with him. This wasn't happening. He wrote again, hand shaking. I didn't do anything wrong. No one said you did. The man's tone was professional, neutral, which somehow made it worse. But when Mr. Draven requests a conversation, it's not optional. The other 2 men had positioned themselves by the exits. Subtle, but clear. Kalen wasn't leaving unless they allowed it. He stood slowly, grabbed his bag. The lead man gestured toward the door. This way, please. Kalen walked. His legs felt numb. The cafe had gone completely silent. Everyone watching. Everyone pretending not to. Outside, a black SUV waited at the curb. Tinted windows. Engine running. The back door opened. Kalen hesitated. The man behind him spoke quietly. It's just a conversation, sir. Nothing more. Kalen didn't believe that, but he didn't have a choice. He climbed into the SUV. The door closed behind him. The interior was leather, expensive, intimidating, and sitting across from him in the opposite seat was Xavier Draven himself. Dark eyes, sharp jaw, presence that filled the entire vehicle. He didn't speak immediately, just studied Kalen, like a predator deciding if something was prey or competition. The silence stretched, uncomfortable, heavy. Finally, Xavier spoke, voice low, controlled. My son spent an hour with you this morning. Kalen nodded. And according to my security team, he was happy. Another nod. When was the last time you saw my son? Kalen grabbed his pen. This morning. First time. Xavier read the note. You'd never met him before? Shake of the head. And yet he sat with you, played with you, talked with you. Nod. Why? Kalen wrote carefully. He asked. Xavier's jaw tightened. That's it? He asked. Yes. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then Xavier leaned forward. Do you know who I am? Nod. And you're not afraid? Kalen thought about lying. But what was the point? He wrote. Terrified. Xavier's eyebrows rose slightly, almost amused. Then why did you agree to see him again tomorrow? That was harder to answer. How do you explain that sometimes someone's loneliness speaks louder than your fear? Kalen wrote slowly. Because he's lonely. And I know what that feels like. Xavier read it. Read it again. Something shifted in his expression. The hardness cracked. Just for a second. He leaned back. Looked out the window. The city passed by. Pedestrians. Traffic. Normal life continuing while Kalen's world tilted sideways. My son doesn't connect with people. Xavier's voice was quieter now. We've had specialists, therapists, tutors trained in childhood development. He turned back to Kalen. Nothing works. He's polite, intelligent, obedient. Pause. But he doesn't let anyone in. Kalen listened. Until this morning, when he walked into a café, found a stranger, and asked him to play. Xavion's eyes locked onto Kalen's. So I'm going to ask you one question, and I need you to answer honestly. Kalen's hand tightened on his pen. What do you want from my son? The question hung in the air. Kalen wrote without hesitation. Nothing. He asked if I'd play. I said yes. That's all. Xavion studied the note. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. Short. Surprised. Almost bitter. Nothing. You want nothing. He shook his head. Do you know how rare that is? Kalen didn't respond. Everyone wants something. Money. Access. Favor. Leverage. Xavion's voice dropped. But you just want to play sugar packet games with a lonely kid. He met Kalen's eyes. That makes you either the most genuine person I've met in a decade, or the most dangerous. Kalen swallowed hard. Xavion reached into his coat, pulled out a card, set it on the seat between them. Tomorrow, same cafe, same time. He tapped the card. If you don't show, I'll understand. My world is complicated, and associating with me puts a target on anyone close to my family. He leaned forward. But if you do show, if you're there when my son walks in looking for his new friend, pause. Then we'll talk again. About boundaries, about safety, about what this actually means. Kalen picked up the card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, just a phone number. He flipped it over. On the back, written in neat handwriting. You stayed because you wanted to. That matters. Xavion knocked on the divider. The SUV pulled to the curb. This is your stop. Kalen looked out the window. They were 3 blocks from his apartment. How did they? I know where you live, where you work, your entire history. Xavion's voice wasn't threatening, just honest. That's what I do. I protect my son. By knowing everything about everyone who gets close to him. The door opened. Kalen climbed out, turned back. Xavion was watching him. Tomorrow, Kalen. The use of his name sent a chill down his spine. The door closed. The SUV drove away, and Kalen stood on the sidewalk, card in hand. Heart racing, world tilting. He walked the remaining blocks to his apartment in a daze, climbed the stairs. The laundromat below was busy, machines humming, the smell of detergent drifting up. He unlocked his door, stepped inside, set his bag down, and just stood there. What had he just agreed to? He looked at the card again, flipped it over. Read the handwritten message. You stayed because you wanted to. That matters. Yeah. It did. He set the card on his small kitchen counter. Made tea. The kettle whistled. He poured. Added honey. Sat by the window. The city stretched out below. Buildings stacked against each other. Lives compressed into concrete and glass. Somewhere out there, Dakari was probably in some huge house. Probably being debriefed by security. Probably being asked about the stranger he'd spent an hour with. Kalen wondered what he was saying. If he was getting in trouble. If Xavion was angry. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stared at it. Then answered. Couldn't speak, so he just waited. A voice came through. Xavion's. I'm not calling to threaten you. Pause. I'm calling to say thank you. Kalen's chest tightened. My son came home smiling. Really smiling. Not the polite smile he gives tutors. The real thing. Another pause. So whatever you did, whatever you are to him, it helped. Silence. Tomorrow, if you show, we'll talk. Set ground rules. Make this work safely. But tonight, I just wanted you to know. You gave my son something I couldn't. A normal morning. The line clicked. Dead. Kalen set the phone down, stared at it, then picked up his tea, drank slowly, and thought about tomorrow. Outside, a car drove past. Slow. Black. Security, probably. Watching. Making sure he was safe. or making sure he wasn't a threat? Maybe both. Kalen didn't know. But he knew one thing. Tomorrow, when Dakari showed up at that cafe, he'd be there. Not because Xavion Draven told him to. Not because he was afraid of what would happen if he didn't. Because a lonely kid asked him to play. And that was reason enough. He finished his tea, changed clothes, set his alarm for midnight. He still had a shift tonight, still had offices to clean, still had a life that didn't include billionaires and security teams and children in expensive suits. But tomorrow morning, for 1 hour, that world would intersect with his again. And Kalen would be ready. He lay down, closed his eyes. And for the first time in months, he didn't dream about being invisible. He dreamed about a little boy in a bow tie asking him to play, and about dark eyes that saw through silence. Morning would come, and with it answers, or more questions, maybe both. But Kalen would face them, because being seen was terrifying, but being forgotten was worse. Do you think Kalen made the right choice agreeing to see Dakari again? What would you do in his situation? Let me know in the comments. Chapter 2. A Promise Kept. Kalen shows up, meets the security team properly, and is brought to the estate. Kalen's alarm went off at 6:30. Too early, but also exactly on time. He'd barely slept. His mind kept replaying yesterday. The cafe. Dakari's small hand tugging his sleeve. The guards bursting in. Xavion's eyes studying him like a problem to solve. And that phone call. You gave my son something I couldn't. A normal morning. Kalen sat up, looked at the card on his nightstand. Heavy stock, embossed number, real. This was actually happening. He showered, dressed, made coffee, burned his tongue because he wasn't paying attention. At 7:45, he left his apartment. The walk to the cafe took 12 minutes. He counted, every step, every breath, trying to calm the nervous energy building in his chest. What if Dakari didn't show? What if yesterday had been a one-time thing? What if Xavion changed his mind and decided Kalen was too risky after all? He pushed open the cafe door. Same bell. Same smell of coffee and pastries. Same morning crowd. But nothing felt the same. The waitress looked up, recognized him. Her eyes widened slightly. She knew. Everyone knew. Yesterday's scene had probably been all over social media by now. Kalen ignored the stares, walked to his usual table by the window, sat down, ordered his usual coffee, black, and waited. 7:53, 7:58, 8:04. No Dakari. Kalen's stomach tightened. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe he should. The door opened. Dakari walked in. Alone again, but different this time. He wasn't scanning the room. He knew exactly where he was going. Straight to Kalen's table. His face lit up when their eyes met. Kalen's chest loosened. He was here. He came. Dakari climbed into the chair across from him. Set down a small backpack. Navy blue with gold trim. Expensive. Good morning. Kalen signed back. Good morning. Dakari grinned. Pulled out a napkin. Started folding. Just like yesterday. Like no time had passed. Like armed guards and powerful fathers and background checks hadn't happened. Just two people. Building towers. Kalen reached for the sugar packets. But something was different today. A man sat at a corner table. Early 30s. Dark suit. Earpiece barely visible. Reading a newspaper. But not really reading. Watching. Kalen recognized him from yesterday. One of Xavion's security team. Dakari noticed Kalen looking. That's Marcus. He's nice. He lets me pick the music in the car. Kalen nodded slowly. So this was the new normal. Security present. Discreet surveillance. The price of being Dakari's friend. He could live with that. They played for 20 minutes. Building. Laughing quietly. Dakari talked more today. About his tutors. About the books he was reading. About a ship he'd seen from his window that morning. It had red sails. Papa says red sails are rare. Most ships use white because it's cheaper. Kalen wrote on a napkin. Did you like it? I loved it. It looked like it was on fire. In a good way. Kalen smiled. Dakari knocked over a tower. Rebuilt it taller. Papa wants to meet you again. Properly this time. Kalen's hand paused mid-reach for a creamer. He said you'd probably be nervous. But he promised it's not scary. Dakari looked up. Is that okay? Kalen grabbed his pen. When? Today. After this. If you want. Kalen's pulse picked up. Today. Right now. He wasn't ready. But would he ever be? He wrote. Okay. Dakari's smile widened. Really? Nod. Papa will be happy. He said you were brave yesterday. For staying even when you were scared. Kalen hadn't realized Xavion noticed. But of course he had. Men like him noticed everything. They continued playing. But Kalen's mind was elsewhere. What did Xavion want? Another interrogation? More questions? Or something else? At 8:45, Marcus approached their table. Young master, the car is ready. Dakari looked at Kalen. Will you come? Kalen hesitated, then nodded. What else was he going to do? They walked outside together. The same black SUV from yesterday waited at the curb. Marcus opened the back door. Dakari climbed in first. Kalen followed. The interior was exactly as he remembered. Leather. Expensive. Intimidating. But Dakari was already buckling his seatbelt. Completely comfortable. This was his normal. Marcus got in the driver's seat. We'll be there in 15 minutes. The vehicle pulled away from the curb. Kalen watched the city pass by. They drove away from the financial district. Toward the waterfront. The buildings got nicer. Taller. More expensive. Dakari pointed out the window. That's where Papa's main office is. The tall one with the blue glass. Kalen looked. The building dominated the skyline. Draven Industries. The name etched in steel near the top. Impossible to miss. Papa says I'll work there someday. But not for a long time. He says I need to be a kid first. Kalen wrote. He's right. Dakari read it. Nodded seriously. I know. But sometimes I want to help now. You help by being his son. Dakari looked at the note for a long time. You think so? Kalen nodded firmly. Dakari smiled. Small. But real. The car turned onto a private road. Trees lined both sides. Manicured. Perfect. Then a gate appeared. Tall. Steel. Security checkpoint. Marcus showed credentials. The guard waved them through. They drove up a long driveway. And then Kalen saw it. The estate. Modern architecture. Glass and steel. Built into the hillside. Overlooking the harbor. It was beautiful. And terrifying. This was where Dakari lived. This was Xavion's world. The car stopped at the entrance. Marcus opened the door. Mr. Draven is in his study. I'll take you there. Kalen climbed out. His legs felt unsteady. Dakari grabbed his hand. Don't be nervous. Papa's nice when you get to know him. That wasn't particularly reassuring. But Kalen squeezed his hand back anyway. They walked inside. The entrance was massive. High ceilings. Marble floors. A chandelier that probably cost more than Kalen's entire year's salary. Art on the walls. Real art. Not prints. Marcus led them through the house. Past rooms Kalen only glimpsed. A formal living room. A library with floor-to-ceiling shelves. A dining room with a table that could seat 30. Finally, they stopped at a dark wood door. Marcus knocked. Sir, they're here. A voice from inside. Send them in. Marcus opened the door. Gestured for Kalen to enter. Dakari went first. Kalen followed. The study was smaller than he expected. But no less impressive. Dark wood paneling. Built-in bookshelves. A desk that looked like it weighed a ton. And sitting behind it was Xavion. He looked different than yesterday. Less formal. No suit jacket. Just a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Reading glasses he took off when they entered. He looked human. Almost. Dakari. Kalen. Thank you for coming. He stood. Walked around the desk. Gestured to 2 chairs. Please. Sit. Dakari climbed into one chair. Kalen took the other. Xavion leaned against his desk. casual. But Kalen could see the tension in his shoulders. This wasn't as relaxed as he was pretending. I wanted to talk to you both, together, because this arrangement involves all of us. He looked at Dakari. You like Kalen? Dakari nodded enthusiastically. And you want to keep seeing him? Another nod. Okay. Then we need to establish some rules. Dakari's face fell slightly. Not bad rules. Safety rules. Xavion pulled out a small notebook. First, you never leave your security detail to meet Kalen. If you want to see him, you ask me or Dante. We'll arrange it. But Papa, no exceptions, Dakari. This is non-negotiable. Dakari looked at his shoes. Yes, Papa. Second, you treat Kalen with respect. He's not your employee. He's your friend. That means you listen to him. You don't make demands. Understood? Yes, Papa. Xavion turned to Kalen. And you, if anything makes you uncomfortable, anything, you tell me immediately. No exceptions. Kalen nodded. Dakari can be persistent. If he asks for something you can't give, you say no. Don't feel pressured. Kalen grabbed his pen. I won't. Good. Xavion stood. Walked to the window. I'm going to be honest with both of you. This situation is unusual. I don't typically allow people into my son's life without extensive vetting. He turned back. But Dakari is happy. Genuinely happy. And that's rare. His eyes met Kalen's. So I'm willing to make an exception. But I need to know you understand the risks. Kalen wrote. What risks? People will notice you. They'll ask questions. They'll make assumptions. Xavion crossed his arms. Some will think you're using Dakari to get to me. Others will think I'm paying you. Neither is true, but perception matters. I understand. Do you? Because once this becomes public, and it will, your life changes. People will recognize you, follow you, dig into your past. Pause. Are you prepared for that? Kalen thought about it. Really thought. His life was simple now. Quiet. Private. This would end that. But when he looked at Dakari, sitting there watching him with hopeful eyes, he wrote, yes. Xavion studied him. Why? Because he deserves to have friends. And I know what it's like to be lonely. Xavion's expression softened. Just slightly. All right then. He walked back to his desk. Pulled out a folder. I have a proposal. He slid it across to Kalen. A job offer. Building maintenance supervisor at Harlow Tower. Salary position. Benefits. Housing allowance. Kalen stared at the folder. Before you say no, let me explain. Xavion sat down. You already do the work. You fixed problems the official maintenance team couldn't solve. You're skilled, reliable, honest. He tapped the folder. This just makes it official. And it gives you financial security. So if people question why you're around my son, there's a legitimate answer. Kalen opened the folder. His eyes caught the salary number. He stopped breathing. Xavion noticed. It's market rate for the position. Kalen grabbed his pen. This is 3 times what I make now. And you'll be managing a team, handling equipment issues, being on call for emergencies. It's earned. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Take the weekend. No pressure. Dakari tugged Kalen's sleeve. Does this mean you'll be around more? Kalen looked at Xavion, who nodded. If he takes the job, yes. He'd work in the building 4 days a week. And we could arrange your visits around his schedule. Dakari's face lit up. Please say yes. Please. Kalen looked at the folder again. This was too much. Too fast. But also, an opportunity. A real opportunity. To help Dakari. To have stability. To stop living paycheck to paycheck. He wrote, Can I ask you something first? Of course. Is this real? Or are you paying me to be Dakari's friend? Xavion's jaw tightened. That's a fair question. He leaned forward. The job is real. The responsibilities are real. If you take it, you'll work hard. My building manager is strict and doesn't tolerate incompetence. Pause. But yes, part of why I'm offering this is because it makes the optics cleaner. It gives you a reason to be in our circle that doesn't raise red flags. He met Kalen's eyes. But make no mistake, you're not being paid to be Dakari's friend. You already are his friend. This just makes your life easier while you are. Kalen understood. It was manipulation, but honest manipulation. And for Dakari's sake, he could accept that. He wrote, "I'll take it." Xavion blinked. "You don't want the weekend to think about it?" "I've been thinking about it since you slid the folder over." "The answer is yes." Xavion smiled. Small. Surprised. "Then welcome to the team. You start Monday." Dakari cheered. Jumped out of his chair. Hugged Kalen. "This is the best day." Kalen hugged him back. Carefully. This kid was changing his entire life. And he was okay with that. Xavion stood. "I'll have HR send you the paperwork. You'll need to fill out some forms. Background check authorization. Tax documents. The usual. Already have my background checked." Xavion laughed. "That was personal security. This is HR compliance. Different databases. Fair enough. Marcus will take you home. Unless you'd like to stay for lunch." Kalen looked at Dakari, who was nodding frantically. "Please stay. Cook made something good. She always does." Kalen wrote, "Okay." They ate in a smaller dining room. Just the three of them. Pasta, salad, fresh bread, simple food, but prepared perfectly. Dakari talked the entire time. About school, about books, about a science project he was working on. Xavion listened, really listened, not distracted by his phone, not rushing through the meal, just present, being a father. It was nice, normal. After lunch, Dakari had tutoring. French. He groaned but went anyway, leaving Kalen and Xavion alone. "Thank you," Xavion said quietly. Kalen tilted his head. Question. "For giving him this. Normalcy. Friendship. Things I can't buy." Kalen wrote, "He gives me those things too." Xavion read it. Nodded slowly. "I'm glad." They sat in comfortable silence. Then Xavion spoke again. "I need you to understand something. My world is dangerous." Kalen listened. "I deal with powerful people. Some legitimate. Some less so. I have enemies. People who would love to hurt me by hurting what I care about." He looked directly at Kalen. "That includes you now. Because you matter to Dakari. I understand." "Do you?" "Because this isn't abstract. There will be security following you. Your apartment building will be monitored. Your routines will be tracked." Pause. "Not because I don't trust you. Because I need to keep you safe." Kalen wrote, "That's okay. I don't have anything to hide." "Everyone has something to hide." "Not from you apparently. You already know everything about me." Xavion smiled slightly. "True." He stood. "Marcus will take you home. I'll have Dante reach out about scheduling. We'll set up regular times for you and Dakari to meet." "Sounds good." "And Kalen?" Kalen looked up. "Thank you for saying yes to all of this." Kalen nodded. Because what else could he do? This was happening. Ready or not. The car ride home was quiet, peaceful. Kalen watched the city pass by. His city. But it looked different now, like he was seeing it from a new angle. When they reached his building, Marcus opened the door. "Mr. Astor, you'll be hearing from HR on Monday. Have a good weekend." Kalen signed thank you. Marcus smiled. "I don't know sign language, but I'm guessing that means thanks." Kalen nodded, climbed out, walked to his building, up the stairs, into his apartment, set his bag down, and just stood there, processing. In the span of 48 hours, his entire life had changed. He had a friend, a job that paid real money, and somehow, improbably, he'd become part of a billionaire's inner circle. All because a lonely kid asked him to play. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "This is Dante. Confirming Tuesday 10 a.m. at the café. Security will be present but discreet. Let me know if this works for you." Kalen responded. "Works for me." Another message came through. "Good. Also, Mr. Draven wanted me to remind you that you can change your mind at any time. No hard feelings. Kalen smiled. Typed back. Not changing my mind. Understood. See you Tuesday. Kalen set his phone down. Looked around his small apartment. Soon he'd be able to afford something better. Safer. Quieter. But for now, this was home. And for the first time in years, he felt like he actually had something to come home to. Not just a place. Purpose. He made tea. Sat by the window. Watched the sun set over the city. And thought about Dakari. About the way his face lit up when he laughed. About the careful way he folded napkins. About the intelligence in his eyes that seemed too old for a 6-year-old. This kid was special. And somehow he'd chosen Kalen. Out of everyone in the world. He'd chosen the mute Omega who cleaned offices. The invisible one. The forgotten one. And in choosing him, Dakari had given Kalen something he didn't know he needed. A reason to be seen. His phone buzzed again. This time a picture message. From Xavion's number. A photo of Dakari. At his desk. Doing homework. With one of the napkin boats from this morning sitting next to his pencil holder. The message beneath it read. He insisted on keeping it. Said it was important. Thank you for making my son smile. Z. Kalen stared at the photo. Saved it. Set his phone down. And for the first time in 3 years he cried. Not from sadness. From relief. From hope. From the overwhelming realization that he mattered to someone. That his presence made a difference. That he wasn't invisible anymore. He was seen. Wanted. Chosen. And that changed everything. What happens next for Kalen and Dakari? Will their friendship survive the scrutiny of Xavion's world? Find out in Chapter 3, where the stakes get higher and the bond between them is tested. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment and share your thoughts. Your words inspire others who need to hear this message. See you in the next chapter. Chapter 3, The World Tilts. Xavion arrives at the café, the interrogation, the card. The café door swung open hard. Too hard. The bell didn't chime. It shrieked. 3 men in black suits stepped inside like they owned the oxygen in the room. Everyone noticed. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Coffee cups paused halfway to lips. Even the espresso machine seemed to quiet down. Kalen looked up from his book. Dakari was halfway through building a tower of sugar packets, completely oblivious to the shift in atmosphere. The lead guard scanned the room. His eyes locked on their table. He moved. Fast. Purposeful. The other 2 flanked the exits. Standard security protocol. Kalen's pulse spiked. The guard reached them in 4 strides. He didn't grab Dakari. Didn't shout. Just knelt beside him with the kind of controlled relief that comes from hours of panic compressed into a single exhale. Young Master. The title dropped into the café like a grenade. Young Master. Not Dakari. Not kid. Master. The word carried weight. Authority. A world most people in this café would never touch. Dakari looked up from his sugar tower. Annoyed. I was playing, Dante. The guard, Dante, closed his eyes briefly. We've been searching the entire city. His voice was steady. But underneath there was exhaustion. Fear. Every street. Every building. The whole team's been mobilized for 3 hours. Dakari frowned. I left a note. A note that said, going out. Nothing else. The other 2 guards moved closer now. One watched the door. The other watched Kalen. Hard. Assessing. Calculating threat levels. Kalen kept his hands visible on the table. Flat. Non-threatening. He'd been in situations like this before. Different context. Same tension. When powerful people felt their control slipping, everyone nearby became a potential problem. Dante's attention shifted. His eyes landed on Kalen. And who exactly are you? The question wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence like a blade. Kalen opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Never did. He touched his throat. Shook his head. Dante's expression hardened. Can't talk? Or won't? Kalen grabbed his pen. Started writing. But before he could finish, Dakari grabbed his sleeve. He's my friend. Dante froze. The word hung there. Friend. Not stranger. Not suspect. Friend. The other guards exchanged glances. This was unexpected. Dakari Draven didn't have friends. He had tutors, security personnel, carefully vetted staff. But friends? That list was empty. Dante's jaw tightened. Young master, you can't just. His name is Kalen. And he stayed because I asked him to. Dakari's voice was firm, more confident than Kalen had heard before, like he was used to being obeyed. We built a city, with sugar packets and napkins, and he taught me a new sign. Dakari demonstrated. The sign for friend. Clumsy, but correct. Dante looked at the table. Really looked. The improvised game. The shared muffin half-eaten. The napkin boats folded with care. The relaxed posture of a child who'd been playing. Not performing. Not following protocol. Just being a kid. Dante's hand moved to his earpiece. Sir, we have him. Pause. He's fine. Unharmed. Just. Another pause. Longer this time. Playing. Kalen watched Dante's face change as he listened to whoever was on the other end. The relief drained away, replaced by something that looked like dread. Understood, sir. Yes, sir. We'll secure the location. He straightened, turned to his team. Lockdown protocol. Now. The guards moved. One to the door. One to the kitchen. The waitress started to protest, but one look from the guard silenced her. Dante knelt beside Dakari again. Your father is on his way. Dakari's eyes widened slightly. He's coming here? Yes. Is he mad? Dante hesitated. He was concerned. That was diplomatic. Kalen could read between the lines. Xavier Draven wasn't concerned. He was furious. And now he was coming here, to this cafe, to see exactly who his son had been spending time with. Kalen's stomach dropped. He should leave. Right now. Before this got worse. But Dakari was still holding his sleeve. And the guards were blocking the exits. He was trapped. The cafe felt smaller suddenly. Suffocating. Other customers were starting to whisper. Phones came out. Pictures. Video. This was going to be online in minutes. Dante noticed. Sir, ma'am, I need everyone to put their phones away. Now. His voice carried authority. Most people complied. Some didn't. One of the other guards moved through the cafe, politely but firmly requesting compliance. Kalen sat frozen. Dakari seemed oblivious to the tension. Papa's going to like you, he said quietly. Kalen doubted that. Very much. He always says I need to make friends my own age. But you're better than kids my age. Kalen wrote quickly. I'm not a kid. Dakari read it. Smiled. I know. That's why you're better. The logic was 6-year-old perfect. Outside, cars were pulling up. Black SUVs. 3 of them. Doors opened. More guards emerged. They formed a perimeter around the cafe entrance. Professional. Efficient. Intimidating as hell. Dante's earpiece crackled. He's here. The temperature in the cafe seemed to drop. Everyone felt it. That shift that happens when real power enters a room. The door opened. Xavier Draven stepped inside. Kalen had seen pictures before. News articles. Financial magazines. But pictures didn't capture it. The presence. The way the air itself seemed to rearrange around him. Tall. Broad shoulders. Expensive coat that moved like liquid. But it wasn't the clothes. It was the eyes. Dark. Sharp. Missing nothing. He scanned the cafe once. Customers looked away. Fast. Then his gaze landed on the table. On Dakari. And on Kalen. Dakari jumped up. Papa! He ran to him without hesitation. Xavier caught him. Lifted him easily. His hands moved over Dakari's shoulders, arms, checking for injuries with the efficiency of someone who'd done it before. Are you hurt? No, Papa. Did anyone touch you? Just Dante when he found me. Xavier's eyes closed briefly. Relief. Or maybe restraint. You left without your security detail. I wanted to see Kalen. Who? Dakari pointed. Him. My friend. Xavion set Dakari down slowly. Walked toward the table. Every step measured. Controlled. Kalen didn't move. Couldn't. Up close, Xavion was worse than the stories suggested. Not because he looked dangerous. Because he looked tired. The kind of tired that comes from carrying weight nobody else can see. Lines around his eyes. Tension in his jaw. This was a man who controlled empires but couldn't control his son's loneliness. He stopped 3 feet from the table. Studied Kalen. Silent. Assessing. Then he spoke. Did my son ask you to play? His voice was low. Controlled. But underneath there was something else. Curiosity, maybe. Kalen nodded. And you didn't ask who he was? Shake of the head. Xavion's jaw tightened. You didn't think it was strange that a 6-year-old in a $1,000 suit walked into a cafe alone? Kalen grabbed his pen. I thought he was lonely. Xavion read it. His expression shifted. Just slightly. Lonely. He repeated the word like he was testing it. Dakari tugged his father's sleeve. He can't talk, Papa. But he knows sign language. And he's really good at building towers. Xavion knelt. I level with the table. With Kalen. What's your name? Kalen wrote. Kalen Astor. And what do you do, Kalen Astor? I clean offices. Which building? Kalen hesitated. Then wrote. Harlow Financial Tower. Something flickered in Xavion's eyes. Recognition. You fixed the espresso machine on the 43rd floor last week. It wasn't a question. Kalen's chest tightened. How did he know that? The maintenance team couldn't figure it out. But someone did. They assumed it was maintenance. But I checked the logs. Xavion stood. No maintenance request was filed, which means someone fixed it off the books. He looked down at Kalen. Someone who works nights. Someone who doesn't ask for credit. Pause. Someone who just fixed it. Kalen didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. Xavion pulled out the chair Dakari had been sitting in. Sat down. The guards tensed. Dante stepped forward. Sir. Xavion raised one hand. Dante stopped. The alpha leaned back in the chair. Relaxed. But not really. There was a coiled readiness in him. Like a weapon at rest. You work nights, Xavion said. Not a question. Kalen nodded. And during the day you come here. Another nod. Alone. Yes. Every day. Most days. And today, my son walked up to you. Kalen wrote. He asked if I'd play. And you said yes. He looked lonely. Xavion stared at the note for a long moment. Lonely. He leaned forward. Do you know what I do, Kalen? Kalen nodded slowly. Then you know that people don't approach my son by accident. They approach him because they want something. Pause. Money. Access. Leverage. Xavion's eyes locked onto his. So I'm going to ask you one question. And I need you to answer honestly. Kalen's hand tightened on his pen. What do you want from my son? The question hung in the air. Heavy. Loaded. Kalen wrote without hesitation. Nothing. He asked if I'd play. I said yes. That's all. Xavion read it. Then again. He sat back. Laughed once. Short. Surprised. Almost bitter. Nothing. He shook his head. You want nothing. Looked at Dante. Then back at Kalen. Do you know how rare that is? Kalen didn't respond. Everyone wants something. The tutors want their salary. The guards want their benefits. Even the therapists want their reputation enhanced by association. Xavion's voice dropped. But you just want to play sugar packet games with a lonely kid. He met Kalen's eyes. That makes you either the most genuine person I've met in a decade. Pause. Or the most dangerous. Kalen swallowed hard. Xavion stood. Dakari climbed into his father's arms. Xavion held him close. We need to go. Dakari's face fell. Can Kalen come? No. Why not? Because I need to make sure he's safe first. Dakari looked confused. Safe from what? Xavion didn't answer. He turned to Dante. Run a full background check. Everything. Employment history. Medical records. Financial transactions. associates, everything. Yes, sir. And I want surveillance on his building. Discreet. Just to make sure nobody else takes an interest. Understood. Xavion looked back at Kalen. You're not in trouble. But my world is complicated. And anyone close to my family becomes a target. He reached into his coat, pulled out a card, set it on the table. If you're serious about being my son's friend, call this number tomorrow. We'll arrange a meeting. Proper security. Proper boundaries. He paused. But if you're smart, you'll walk away now. Go back to your quiet life. Forget this happened. Dakari grabbed his father's collar. Papa, no. He promised he'd come back tomorrow. Xavion's expression softened slightly. Did he? Dakari nodded frantically. He promised. Xavion looked at Kalen. Is that true? Kalen picked up the card. Nodded. Xavion studied him for another long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. Thin, but real. Then I'll see you tomorrow, Kalen asked her. He turned to leave. The guards moved to follow. But Dakari twisted in his father's arms. Looked back at Kalen. Thank you for playing Wimme. His voice carried across the café. Then they were gone. The door closed. The tension released like a broken wire. Customers exhaled. Started talking again. Phones came back out. The waitress approached Kalen's table. Slowly. Are you okay? Kalen nodded. Do you know what just happened? He shook his head. That was Xavion Draven. He doesn't just show up places. Ever. She looked at the door. And his son doesn't talk to people. Any people. She turned back to Kalen. But he talked to you. Kalen signed. He was lonely. She didn't understand the signs. But she understood his expression. Yeah. I guess money can't fix everything. She walked away. Kalen sat alone at the table, staring at the card in his hand. Heavy stock. Embossed lettering. Just a phone number. No name. He flipped it over. On the back, written in neat, precise handwriting. You stayed because you wanted to. That matters more than you know. Z. Kalen's hands were shaking. Not from fear. From something he couldn't name. He carefully folded the card. Slipped it into his pocket. Then started gathering his things. Outside, 3 black SUVs pulled away from the curb. But one lingered. Just for a moment. Long enough for Kalen to see Xavion watching him through tinted glass. Their eyes met. Just for a second. Then the vehicle drove away. And Kalen realized something terrifying. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. He walked home slowly. The afternoon sun was warm. Normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. His apartment was exactly as he'd left it. Small. Quiet. Safe. But somehow it felt different now. Like a shell he'd outgrown without noticing. He set the card on his counter. Made tea. Sat by the window. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stared at it. Then answered. Couldn't speak, so he just waited. A voice came through. Xavion's. I'm not calling to threaten you. Pause. I'm calling to say thank you. Kalen's chest tightened. My son came home smiling. Really smiling. Not the polite smile he gives tutors. The real thing. Another pause. So whatever you did, whatever you are to him, it helped. Silence. Tomorrow, if you show up, we'll talk. Set ground rules. Make this work safely. But tonight, I just wanted you to know. His voice softened. You gave my son something I couldn't. A normal morning. The line went dead. Kalen set the phone down, stared at the wall, and wondered what he'd gotten himself into. Outside, the city continued. Cars. People. Life. But somewhere in that city, a little boy was probably telling his father about sugar packet towers. And somewhere else, a powerful man was probably trying to figure out if Kalen was a threat or a miracle. Kalen didn't know which he was. But he knew one thing. Tomorrow he'd find out. Because walking away wasn't an option anymore. Not when a lonely kid had finally found someone who listened. Not when that kid's father had looked at him and seen something worth protecting instead of eliminating. He finished his tea, changed clothes, set his alarm, He still had a shift tonight, still had offices to clean, still had a life that didn't include billionaires and security teams. But starting tomorrow, that might change. And for the first time in 3 years, Kalen wasn't sure if that terrified him or excited him. Maybe both. He grabbed his work bag, headed for the door, paused, looked back at the card on the counter, then left, because whatever tomorrow brought, tonight he still had to survive. And survival meant routine, meant showing up, meant doing the work nobody noticed. But as he walked to the subway, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. Not threatening, just watching, making sure he was safe, or making sure he wasn't a threat. He didn't look around, just kept walking. Because if Xavier Draven wanted to know where he went and what he did, there was nothing Kalen could do to stop him. So he might as well act normal, whatever that meant anymore. What do you think will happen when Kalen calls that number? Will Xavier trust him? Or is this the beginning of something dangerous? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss Chapter 4, where everything changes. Share this story if it touched you. Your comments inspire others who need to hear this. Chapter 4, the cost of belonging, the formal meeting, the job offer. Kalen says yes to everything. Kalen dialed the number at exactly 8 in the morning. 3 rings. Then a voice. Mr. Astor, I was hoping you'd call. Not Xavier. Someone else. Professional. Clipped. My name is Dante. We met yesterday. The head of security. Mr. Draven would like to meet with you this afternoon. 2 o'clock. I'll send a car to your location at 1:30. Kalen grabbed his pen. But Dante continued before he could write anything. The car will be a black sedan. License plate Echo 72 Delta. The driver's name is Marcus. He'll have identification. If anything feels wrong, don't get in. Call this number immediately. Pause. Do you understand? Kalen tapped his phone twice. Their agreed signal for yes. Good. Dress casual. This is a conversation, not an interrogation. The line went dead. Kalen set the phone down, looked at his closet. Casual. Everything he owned was casual. He settled on jeans and a clean sweater. The nicest things he had. At 1:25, his phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Vehicle arriving in 5 minutes. Dante. Kalen grabbed his keys, headed downstairs. The black sedan was already waiting. Exactly as described. A man stepped out, mid-40s, professional suit. He approached Kalen with an ID badge held up. Mr. Astor? I'm Marcus. May I see your ID, please? Kalen showed his driver's license. Marcus scanned it with his phone, waited for confirmation, then nodded. Thank you, sir. This way. He opened the back door. Kalen climbed in. The interior was nice but not ostentatious. Clean. Comfortable. Marcus got in the driver's seat. We'll be there in about 20 minutes. Mr. Draven asked me to let you know that you can change your mind at any point. Just say the word and I'll take you home. No questions asked. Kalen appreciated that. But he wasn't changing his mind. They drove through the city, away from the financial district, toward the waterfront. The buildings got nicer, more expensive. Eventually they turned into a private drive. A gate, security checkpoint. Marcus showed credentials. The gate opened. They drove up a long driveway, and then Kalen saw it. The house. Except it wasn't a house. It was an estate. Modern. Glass and steel. Built into the hillside overlooking the harbor. The car stopped at the entrance. Marcus opened the door. Mr. Draven is waiting in the garden room. Dante will meet you inside. Kalen stepped out. The front door opened. Dante stood there. Mr. Astor. Welcome. He gestured inside. This way, please. The interior was impressive. High ceilings. Minimal furniture. Everything expensive but understated. They walked through a hallway, past rooms Kalen only glimpsed. A library. A dining room with a table that could seat 20. Then Dante opened a glass door. The garden room. Kalen stepped through and stopped. The room was all windows, floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the harbor. Ships in the distance, sunlight pouring in, and sitting at a small table, papers spread in front of him, was Xavion. He looked up. "Kalen, thank you for coming." He stood, gestured to the chair across from him. "Please, sit." Kalen sat. Dante positioned himself by the door, present but not intrusive. Xavion studied Kalen for a moment, then pushed a folder across the table. "I had my team run a background check. I hope you don't mind." Kalen shook his head. What was he going to say? "You're clean. No criminal record. No debts. No suspicious associations." Xavion opened the folder. "You worked at a warehouse before the cleaning job. Left after an incident involving a fire." He looked up. "You saved a coworker. Lost your voice in the process." Kalen nodded slowly. "The coworker never thanked you. Never even visited you in the hospital." Another nod. "And you never filed for compensation. Never sued. Never made a claim." Xavion closed the folder. "You just moved on." Kalen grabbed his pen. "What else was I supposed to do?" Xavion read it. Most people would have leveraged that. Made it into something. A story. A lawsuit. At minimum, a workers' comp claim. He leaned back. "But you didn't. It wouldn't change anything." "No, I suppose it wouldn't." Silence. Then Xavion spoke again. "I'm going to be direct with you, Kalen. Because I don't have time for games." He leaned forward. "My son is lonely. Deeply lonely. And I don't know how to fix it." His voice was quiet. Honest. "I've hired the best tutors. The best therapists. I've tried playdates with other high-net-worth families. I've tried everything." Pause. "Nothing works. He's polite to everyone. Kind to everyone. But he doesn't connect." Xavion's jaw tightened. "Until yesterday. When he met you." Kalen listened. "He came home talking about you. About the towers you built. About how you didn't ask questions. How you just played." Xavion's eyes met his. And for the first time in months, he looked happy. Kalen didn't know what to say. "So I need to understand something. What do you want from this?" Kalen wrote. "I don't want anything. He's a good kid. He deserves friends." Xavion read it. "Just that. Just that. You understand that being around my son means being around me. Around my world. Which is complicated." Kalen wrote. "I understand. Do you?" Xavion stood. Walked to the window. "I run a shipping empire. Legitimate business. But the nature of international trade means I deal with gray areas." He turned back. "People will assume things about you. About why you're close to my family. They'll make accusations. They'll dig into your life." Pause. "Are you prepared for that?" Kalen thought about it. Really thought. Then wrote. "Is Dakari worth it?" Xavion stared at the note. "Yes. Then yes." Something shifted in Xavion's expression. The hardness cracked. He walked back to the table. Sat down. "I want to propose something. A trial arrangement." Kalen tilted his head. "You continue seeing Dakari. Same café. Same time. But with security present. Discreet, but present." He tapped the table. "After a month we reassess. See if this is sustainable. See if it's healthy for Dakari." Pause. "If at any point you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, you walk away. No hard feelings. No consequences." Kalen grabbed his pen. "What about Dakari? What if he gets attached?" "That's a risk I'm willing to take. Because right now he's not attached to anyone. And that's worse." Kalen understood that. "Okay, I agree." Xavion extended his hand. "Then we have an agreement." Kalen shook it. The handshake was firm, but not aggressive. Just solid. "There's one more thing." Xavion pulled out another folder. "Your cleaning job pays minimum wage. And your apartment situation is not ideal." Kalen tensed. "I'm not trying to insult you, but I need you safe. And your current building has inadequate security." He slid the folder over. "I'm offering you a job. Building maintenance supervisor at Harlow Tower. Salary position. Benefits. Housing allowance. Kalen stared at the folder. This isn't charity. You'd be working, managing the maintenance team, handling equipment issues, the things you already do, but officially. He leaned back. And it would give you a legitimate reason to be in my circle. Make the optics cleaner. Kalen opened the folder. The salary number made his breath catch. 3 times what he made now. This is too much. It's market rate for the position. No, it's not. Xavion smiled slightly. Fine. It's market rate plus hazard pay for dealing with me. Kalen couldn't help it. He smiled. Small, but real. Take the weekend to think about it. No pressure. The arrangement with Dakari stands either way. Kalen wrote, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why are you doing this?" Xavion was quiet for a long moment. "Because for the first time in years, my son asked for something that wasn't material. He didn't ask for a toy or a trip or a new tutor. He looked out the window. He asked for you, specifically, by name, turned back. And I've learned that when my son actually wants something real, I should probably listen." The door opened. Dakari ran in. "Papa, is Kalen here?" Dante said. He stopped, saw Kalen. His face lit up. "You came." He ran to the table. Xavion caught him before he could climb on Kalen's lap. "Easy. Give him space." But Dakari was already signing. "You came. You kept your promise." Kalen signed back. "I always keep my promises." Dakari grinned, then pulled a napkin from his pocket. Carefully folded. "I saved this. From yesterday." It was one of the napkin boats. Kalen's chest tightened. Dakari set it on the table between them. "Can we make more?" Xavion looked at Kalen. "Do you have time?" Kalen nodded. "Then I'll leave you two alone. Dante will be outside if you need anything." He stood, ruffled Dakari's hair. "Behave." "I always do, Papa." "I know." Xavion left. And for the next hour, Kalen and Dakari built an entire fleet of paper boats. They didn't talk much. Didn't need to. Just built. Created. Existed in the same space without pressure or performance. Eventually Dakari yawned. "I have tutoring in an hour." Kalen signed. "What are you learning?" "French. And calculus." Kalen's eyebrows rose. "I know. It's a lot. But Papa says education is important." "It is. Do you know other languages?" Kalen shook his head. "Just sign language?" "Nod. Can you teach me more?" "Of course." They spent the next 20 minutes on basic signs. Hello. Goodbye. Thank you. Friend. Happy. Dakari was a fast learner. Too fast. This kid was going to run the world someday. When it was time to go, Dante appeared. "The car is ready, Mr. Esther." Dakari grabbed Kalen's hand. "You'll come back." Kalen nodded. "Tomorrow." Kalen looked at Dante. "We'll arrange a schedule," Dante said. "Something consistent." Dakari hugged Kalen. Quick. Unexpected. Then ran off. Dante walked Kalen to the car. "Thank you for coming." Kalen signed. "Thank you for the invitation." Dante smiled slightly. "I don't know sign language, but I assume that was polite." Kalen nodded. "Good. Mr. Draven will be in touch about the job offer. In the meantime, Dakari will see you Tuesday. Same café. 10 a.m. The car ride home was quiet. Peaceful. When Kalen got back to his apartment, everything looked different. Smaller. Shabbier. But also temporary. Like he was standing at a crossroads and didn't realize it yet. He looked at the job offer folder. Then at the card from Xavion. Then at the napkin boat Dakari had given him. And made a decision. He pulled out his phone. Sent a text to the number Dante had called from. "I'll take the job. When do I start?" The response came 2 minutes later. "Monday, 8 a.m. Report to HR on the 40th floor. Welcome to the team. Dante." Kalen set the phone down. Looked around his apartment one last time as the person he used to be. Tomorrow everything would change. He'd have a real job. Real income. Real security. And more importantly, he'd have a chance to help a lonely kid feel less alone. That night, he didn't dream about being invisible. He dreamed about paper boats sailing across a polished table, about a little boy laughing, about dark eyes that looked at him and saw someone worth protecting. Monday morning came. Kalen reported to HR, signed papers, got his ID badge, met the maintenance team. They were skeptical at first, but when he fixed a hydraulic issue they'd been fighting with for 3 days, their tune changed. By the end of the week, they were asking him questions, respecting his expertise, treating him like he belonged. Tuesday, he met Dakari at the café. With Dante in the corner watching, they built towers, played games, signed conversations. Normal, safe, perfect. Weeks passed. Then a month. Kalen moved to a better apartment, one with working heat and actual security. He saw Dakari 3 times a week, sometimes at the café, sometimes at the estate, once at the harbor watching the ships come in. Xavion joined them occasionally, not hovering, just present, being a father, learning to play again. One evening, after Dakari had gone to bed, Xavion and Kalen sat in the garden room. "I owe you an apology," Xavion said. Kalen tilted his head. "When we first met, I assumed you wanted something. Money, access, something." He looked out at the harbor. "But you just wanted to be his friend." Pause. "And that's changed everything." Kalen wrote. "He changed me too." Xavion read it. "How?" "I stopped trying to be invisible. Started letting people see me." Xavion nodded slowly. "That's brave. Or foolish. Maybe both." They sat in comfortable silence. Then Xavion spoke again. "I don't have many friends. Real ones. People who aren't on payroll or trying to get something from me." He looked at Kalen. "But I'd like to think we're becoming that. Friends." Kalen wrote. "I'd like that too." Xavion smiled. Real. Warm. The kind of smile that didn't come out often. "Good." He stood. "It's late. Marcus will take you home." As Kalen left, he looked back once. Xavion was standing at the window, looking out at his ships. But he looked less alone now, less burdened. The months continued. Dakari started first grade. Kalen helped him with homework sometimes. Math problems solved with sugar packets. Reading practice with napkin boats labeled with words. Xavion started asking Kalen's opinion on things. Business decisions. Dakari's education. Whether he should hire a new therapist or just let things develop naturally. Kalen offered what he could. Usually just honesty. And apparently that was exactly what Xavion needed. One day, 6 months after they'd met, Dakari asked a question. "Are you my family now?" Kalen looked at Xavion. Xavion looked back, then nodded slightly. Kalen signed, "Yes, if you want me to be." Dakari hugged him. "I do." And just like that, Kalen's life had transformed. From invisible to essential. From alone to belonging. From surviving to living. All because a lonely kid had the courage to ask someone to play, and a mute omega had the courage to say yes. Power often recognizes itself, but sometimes power recognizes kindness first, and that makes all the difference. Thank you for following Kalen and Dakari's journey. This story reminds us that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply show up for someone who needs us. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your words inspire others who need to hear this message. And if you know someone who feels invisible, share this story with them. Sometimes we all need to be reminded that we matter. See you in the next story.